Hello and welcome to a webinar all about options for clearing debt. So my name is Stacey Miller. I am a wellbeing consultant leading on the BCP app and webpage called BCP Together. And then this is...
Hi, I'm Nina Downs. I'm a debt advisor for the Citizens Advice across Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole.
Fab. So what are we going to be learning about in this webinar? So we're going to be looking at the impact of COVID actually, and on the fallout of that on debt and mental health, because this will be ongoing and will be here to probably stay, unfortunately, and obviously a little bit about the cost of living as well. And then we're going to be looking at, which I expect you're probably most interested to learn about, all the many options for clearing debt, because there are many now, and then where to go for more information if you'd like it. So a slide on the impact of COVID. So 1 in 3 households have actually lost in their income. So they've seen a decrease in money received as a result of the pandemic. 50% of people are now saying that they are experiencing problem debt as a result of their mental health issues, and it can cause it. But actually, what actually is problem debt? So Nina, do you mind saying what it is?
Problem debt is when you can't manage to afford your monthly repayments anymore, or you're really struggling to meet them. A lot of us are in debt, but it's manageable. We can make those payments every month and it doesn't affect us. But the debt becomes problematic when you can't make those payments anymore.
Right, good point. Yeah, because not all debt is bad, is it? If I've got a mortgage
No.
and I'm paying it, then that's fine. Huge links, sadly, with debt and with COVID and with suicide rates. If you look at reasons for suicide, one of the reasons is often financial stress, and an example of that could be with debt. Huge links with anything to do with job issues, unemployment, also looking at people that have had to have mental health issues or have mental health issues. They often have to cut back on essential stuff, and what I mean by that is food and heating. So essential things that we need for our basic care. A third of people with mental health issues have reported they've had to cut back, and that statistic is from 2020. So without sounding too negative, and I try not to, that statistic will only get worse, hence why we're putting on these webinars to hopefully help people out. 18% of people with mental health problems are in problem debt. So huge relationship between money and well-being, hence why we want this slide on first before we look into the options for clearing debt. And 3.5 million people currently behind in their council tax payments. And again, this statistic is from 2020. So sadly, without being too negative again, these statistics are bound to get worse with the cost of living added to all the issues from the fallout of the pandemic. Unfortunately, money, debt, it's going to become a huge another issue for every single person, I expect. So this is why it's really important to have this kind of webinar. So over to Nina, who's going to talk about all the different options for clearing debt, if you have any.
Okay, I'm not going to go into everything in detail because, as you can see, there are quite a lot of different options, and each option depends on your own personal circumstance. What we look at the Citizens Advice is we go through a budget with you, we look at ways of maximising your income, decreasing your spending, and looking at what would be the best option to help clear your debt. So we've got moratorium, which is where we can ask for an informal hold. And that can last anywhere from 30 days to 6 months, depending on the creditor. If you've got a small surplus each month and you can afford to make token payments, they're generally about £1 to each creditor. The only thing is with that is it will take a while to get everything paid off. If you're receiving mental health treatment, we can approach your creditors to ask for them to write those debts off. If you've got a CCJ and your debts are under £5,000, we can look at an administration order. A voluntary charge is where you can put a charge against your property for a debt, and then you don't get chased for that debt, and the debt will be paid off out of the proceeds of any sale of the house in the future. If you've got a surplus income, you can look at consolidating your debt and getting one loan to pay it all off. The only thing we would say is make sure you seek independent financial advice before you do that. You could do nothing. Not the best thing to do.
No, I was going to say, Nina, can I just ask, because I think some people, sometimes it's easier at the time to bury our heads, isn't it? And just think,
Oh, totally.
I'll do
Yeah.
that another time. Do you find it maybe sometimes it's easier or better in the long run if people come and see you quite early, do you think?
Yeah, I think as soon as you get to the point where you know you're not going to be able to make those payments, or you're struggling to make those payments, and that the debts are then starting to become a problem, it's worth reaching out and asking for help then, because the worse the debt gets, the more it's going to affect your mental health.
Very true.
You're going to be stressing a lot. So, you know, the sooner the better. Okay. As soon as you start worrying, come to Citizens Advice. Okay. So just around doing nothing, obviously, if you don't pay, there's interest and charges being added constantly to the debt. There's also the fact that the creditor then might take you to court and get a CCJ. Then you might end up with bailiffs calling. So one thing I would always say, don't ignore your creditors, because the more you keep in communication with them, the much easier it is to deal with. Okay. If you have got some funds available that could be put towards paying off some of your debts, we can look at something called a partial write-off. If you've got any assets, like, I don't know, you've got a car that's worth 15 grand and you could maybe go out and buy one for 5. With that 10 grand that's left, we can look at paying off your debts. It may be that you've got a compensation claim or a pension pot or savings that you can dip into, in which case we can look at full and final settlement. Time orders are available with regards to Consumer Credit Act debts. If you have got a CCJ and the court are asking you to pay an unreasonable amount a month, we can vary that amount and go back to the court. If you've got, I don't know, £75 or something like that a month left, and you can go to the creditors with repayment offers. We do it pro rata so that, see, your priority debts get paid off at a higher amount, and then we pro rata it amongst the rest of the debts that are left. Or if you want to make just one single payment to your creditors, there is an option which is a debt management plan. We don't deal with those at the Citizens Advice, but you could contact Step Change or Pay Plan. And just quickly, there's a couple of other things that aren't on the slide because we ran out of room, because there are so many. There is the option of bankruptcy, and there is also an IVA, which is mainly targeted towards people that have got assets to protect. So if you're a homeowner, or you've got a really good car and you want to protect those assets and you've got a surplus income, you can take out an IVA. Please, please, please go really careful about IVAs. Make sure you get debt advice before you consider one, because they do quite often get missold.
What are they? What's that stand for?
Individual voluntary arrangement.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah, it's a mouthful. That's why it's called an IVA.
Yeah, I couldn't remember.
And then we've also got a debt relief order, which is very similar to bankruptcy, but way cheaper. So whatever your situation, there's options out there for you.
Brilliant. And there's, I believe there's a breathing space government initiative as well.
Yeah, there is. Breathing space was brought in by the government in 2021. And what it does is it gives us and you time to get all of the relevant information together to work out what is going to be your best debt solution. So it lasts up to 60 days. You can apply for it once a year. It pauses creditor contact, freezes interest and charges, pauses any enforcement action. Okay, so it's a really good tool to use whilst we gather things like your credit reports. We look at your budget, see if there's any ways, you know, we could maybe apply for further benefits. If you're receiving mental health crisis treatment, then you may be able to apply for a mental health breathing space. So that has to be referred by an approved mental health practitioner, and it lasts for the amount of time you're receiving treatment plus another 30 days after that treatment finishes.
Brilliant.
So yeah, so breathing spaces are really, really handy new tool that the government have brought in.
Love that. I think it's super, super important. So, and I don't think many people will know that. So thank you for raising awareness about that. So I hope that hasn't overwhelmed everyone, but I think on a plus, it's actually nice to see that there's loads and loads of options, which is super, super important, which hopefully can be very empowering for everyone. So if we want more information, which I expect we will, there is obviously the BCP Together app. And if you don't want that app, you can go online and just search off the website. A fantastic website that I personally love and I sign up to is moneysavingexpert.com, which has latest newsletters once a week that tell you up-to-date information about what's going on and how to save money. I mean, what's not to love about that?
And then there's also us at the Citizens Advice across Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole, or if you're not in the area, contact your local Citizens Advice. There are lots of different things that we can help people with. We've got budgeting teams, we've got the debt team, we've got financial wellbeing teams, but we can also help with housing, employment, so many different issues.
Everything.
So please just, we're like a one-stop shop. So please just reach out and come to us if something is bothering you.
Brilliant.
And then if you've got problem debt and for any reason we're not available to help you, then please contact Step Change, who are a charity who will help you for free as well. Okay.
Brilliant. Love it. That's amazing. Thanks so much, Nina, for helping with this webinar. I hope you've all found it really useful and keep an eye out for more coming out.